Horizon Jazz Home Studio Reaction, and this is Indian Armed Forces, the highest battlefield controller. Military power by the channel, military weapons. Is the highest battlefield controller. It's better than the PlayStation controller, it's better than Xbox controller. What is a battlefield controller? I don't know what the fuck this is about, but yeah, it's something military, I guess. We're gonna see what he's gonna talk about. Yeah, I've been watching military videos recently mostly about like geopolitics and equipments. But from like Federation, that's like whole separate channel, let's just call it, talking about stories, mostly American stories about badassery. But yeah, the more I learn about military, the more I realize how complex branches are, right? Because most time people like get confused, right? People don't even know the difference between military and army. One thing I've noticed, like people will just say army, they wanted to say military, but they just think it's the same thing, and they have to explain like army, navy, these are different branches. Military is as a whole thing. You say a military, you don't say army. It's a whole thing. So yeah. Now, before any of my Indian brethren comments like, why you speaking like that? Why you not speaking like Apu from Simpsons or something? This is our talk. Kaise ho dosto? Kem jo bhaiyo? This is how I talk. Alright? This is, I'm not making, this is how I talk normally. So yeah, that's what it's fun. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe so that way I know we start videos to react to more. Check out the reaction, there's a link in the description. And yeah, let's watch it.
Military weapons. How well do you know India's military? Join us and watch our video and share in the comments the new things that you learned from it.
Yeah, I think those were bullets, right? Royal Enfields. Yeah, India is insanely obsessed with that. I never understood, but then like I grew up and kind of understood. Yeah, I liked Harleys better, but yeah, I also, start to love classics, basically, like Royal Enfield and things. But yeah, that's what basically that was.
The Indian Armed Forces are the military forces of the Republic of India, comprised of 3 divisions: the Indian Army, the Indian Navy, and the Indian Air Force. Additionally, the Indian Armed Forces are supported by the Indian Coast Guard and paramilitary organizations and various inter-service commands and institutions. The Indian Armed Forces has the 4th largest defense budget in the world, which is $66.5 billion. The armed forces have 4 main tasks: to assert the territorial integrity of India, to defend the country if attacked by a foreign nation, to support the civil community in case of disasters, and to participate in United Nations peacekeeping operations in compliance with India's commitment to the United Nations Charter.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how I feel about T-90 tanks now after what happened in Russia-Ukraine war. But yeah, I guess that's the best we have. I don't know. I think, most of our battles are now in like China versus India elements or Himalayas. That's a different war compared to any other war if you fight in like hills. And one thing I realized that India is very uniquely equipped in that. Current government, which has been like since 2016, has been working towards that, to like shift military position that way. So in 2024, India is very well equipped when it comes to like mountain battles, right? High altitude battles. So I don't know if T-90 tanks would be useful there or not, but yeah.
Some interesting facts that you should know about the Indian Armed Forces include: India has the biggest voluntary army in the world. All serving and reserve personnel have actually opted in for service.
Okay, I don't want to pause too much, but could you imagine conscription? How big the Indian army would be if it's based on conscription? 1.4 billion people, like the numbers would go insane. Obviously, it's voluntary.
There's a provision for conscription in the Constitution, although it's never been used. India controls the highest battlefield in the world, at 5,000 meters above the sea level. Operation Rehat in 2013 was one of the biggest civilian rescue operations that was ever carried out. The Central Armed Police Forces, which are referred to as paramilitary forces based on a colonial perspective, are not armed forces. As such, they're headed by civilian officers from the Indian Police Service and are under the control of the Ministry of Home Affairs and not the Ministry of Defense. These are central police organizations. India's first exclusive defense.
Yeah, paramilitary is basically when unrest becomes a big thing in cities and things. These are the people, so that's why they are not really military, but they're like military trained but civilian arm of things.
Satellite, the GSAT-7, was successfully launched by European Space Consortium Arianespace's Ariane 5 rocket from Kourou spaceport in French Guiana in August of 2013, giving a major push to the country's maritime security. The Indian Navy succeeded in mission Dakshin Dhruv by traversing to the South Pole on
Dakshin Dhruv, implying South Pole, Dhruv Pole, yeah, South Pole. No, South direct, I don't know, South.
Skis in 2006. With this historic expedition, they set the record for being the world's first military team to have successfully completed a ski traverse to the geographic South Pole. Of its personnel, the Indian Armed Forces have set up numerous military academies across India for training personnel.
Okay, what's with the ladder? It feels like Fallout. Somebody just made ladder and forgot to build a building. Fallout 4 settlement right there. Look at that.
Armed forces have set up numerous military academies across India for training personnel. With a strength of over 1.4 million active personnel, it's the world's second largest military force and has the world's largest volunteer army. The Indian Armed Forces are the world's fifth powerful military. The age for voluntary military service in India is 16 to 18 years old, and there's no conscription. Women may join as officers and serve in combat as pilots.
And there is no, military needs you type of thing, right? I was reading about how in US, like through social media and things, people trying to recruit military people. That's not the case in India. You rarely ever hear about it. People just know there is military. If you want to enlist, go there. That's how loosely based it is. Nobody's gonna force you in any way, not even psychological warfare, not even try to like dupe you into doing it. I mean, 1.4 billion people, enough people will basically enlist. It's not gonna be an issue type of way. Okay, this is an old video. Anybody watching thinking like, oh, look at that Soviet era planes. Yeah, there is that. But now India's like upgrading a lot, Rafales and things like that. It's not just like very old MiGs and things, right? After that, what incident? F-16 versus MiG-21 incident. The current government realized like, okay, we need to step up a bit. Like China and other countries are acquiring like 5th generation fighters. Let alone 5th generation, at least we should have like better 4th generation at least. I don't know what India's thinking about 5th generation, even if it's in the radar or not, but yeah.
of their exercises. India often conducts naval exercises with other friendly countries designed to increase naval interoperability and also strengthen the cooperative security relationships. The Indian Navy took part in the world's largest naval exercise/war game in 2014, along with 22 other nations, and has since taken part in that exercise each year. When it comes to wars and operations, the Indian Armed Forces have been engaged in a number of major military operations, which include the Indo-Pakistani Wars of 1947, 1965, and 1971, the Portuguese-Indian War, and more. India also honors its military forces annually each year on December 7th with Armed Forces Flag Day. Since 1962, the IAF has maintained a close military relationship with Russia, which includes cooperative development of programs such as the 5th generation fighter aircraft and the multi-role transport aircraft.
Yeah, India pulled out of the 5th generation Su-57 thing, right? I don't know why. Maybe it wasn't in the budget or something. I don't know what's that about, right? There must have been a reason, but I don't know. Maybe they're thinking like, okay, we have a lot of like old MiG-21s and shit like that, like from 1950s or whatever. We at least need to have somewhat good enough planes from at least close to 21st century. So that's why we bought Rafale and things like that. So thinking about 5th generation wasn't in the book, I think, right? They need to modernize a lot of things before going there.
When it comes to equipment, the Department of Defense production of the Ministry of Defense is responsible for the indigenous production of equipment that's used by the Indian Armed Forces. It comprises 41 Indian ordnance factories under the control of the Ordnance Factories Board and 8 defense PSUs. India remains as one of the largest importers of defense equipment, with Russia, Israel, France, and the United States being the top foreign suppliers of military
United States, that's a key point, right? Because in recent times, I can't pause here.
Equipment. The
Oh my God.
government of India has a make in
There you go. Yeah. So, the United States, that part, surprises people, mostly Americans, because they only think like India only buys from like Soviet Russian equipment, right? I hear comments all the time, but that's not the case. India also buys from USA as well, right? A lot of helicopters, Apaches, and things like that as needed, right, from France, like Rafales and things, right? There are certain things India can't buy from USA as to like buy around and buy from Russia and things. And Russia is like the oldest partner, right? At the time where everybody abandoned India, even though India wasn't the aggressor, everybody abandoned India. Russia didn't. Soviet Union / Russia didn't. So India can't just like forget that. So people are always like somewhat angry in the comments. You really need to understand like what the situation is.
India initiative to indigenize manufacturing and reduce dependence on imports, which include defense imports and procurement. In the category of weapon systems, the Indian Navy operates K-missile family submarine-launched ballistic missiles, along with Prithvi-3 ballistic ship-launched missiles, and a number of land attack cruise and anti-ship missiles, like the BrahMos supersonic cruise missile.
Yeah, the BrahMos was a big thing. I still remember when it was like first happened, and it was a big thing when it comes to technology-wise, right, where India was standing.
the 3M-54E and 3M-14E Club Anti-Ship Land Attack Cruise Missile, along with the KH-35, the P-20, the Sea Eagle, and Gabriel. When it comes to air power, it has a total aircraft strength of 2,082, which includes 520 fighters, 694 attacks, 248 transports, and a total helicopter strength of 692 with 17 attack helicopters. On land, it has 4,184 combat tanks, 2,815 armored fighting vehicles, a self-propelled artillery of 200.
I'm not gonna lie, 4,000 combat tanks, even I didn't know that. That's an impressive number, right? I was reading off 5,000 tanks from Russia, and I was like, oh, that's a big number. India have 4,000, come on, that's a good number, right?
A towed artillery of 4,060 and 266 rocket projectors. And on water, it has total naval assets of 295, with 1 aircraft carrier, 13 frigates, 11 destroyers, 22 corvettes, 16 submarines, 139 patrol vessels, and a mine warfare vessel. Thanks for watching. What do you think about the Indian Armed Forces? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure that you...
As an Indian, it's awesome. But of course, I'm going to say that. Yeah. Look, man. India is like a relatively like young country, 75 plus years, right? I mean, obviously, India as an entity has been for the millennia, but the modern version, like free India, let's just say, has been a thing for 75 years. Economy is like, let's just say, doing fine. It's in top 10, right? Soon it's going to be in top 5. But at the same time, population is also rising ridiculously. Relatively looking at the other countries, even though land mass is big, but for this level of economy, this level of people, it's not really that big, right? When you see like the Google images of the night, India is the only country that will like pop out because the entire country is lit up, because that's how densely popular India is, right? So it's not easy to govern this. It's not easy to like know how to spend money. It's not easy to like carve out what you want. So everything I've seen so far is like impressive enough for this young country, right? Well, who knows where India is going to be in next 75 years. So yeah, that's what battlefield controller is. Wait a minute, let me Google that. Well, there you go. First battlefield controller, and just show me about video game Battlefield. That's the world we live in now. Who cares about global scale things and military and like like people spend billions and billions and total of trillions of dollars into military budget. But let's talk about Battlefield video game. So yeah, battlefield controller military meaning Air Force Special Operations Command's combat controllers are battlefield airmen assigned to special tactics squadrons. Oh, that's what they mean. They're trained special operation forces, certified FFA air traffic controls. Okay, so special forces type of way. That makes sense. So yeah, highest battlefield. Yeah, I mean, in India being in any category top is achievement in itself, right? Knowing like what the opposition is. So, but yeah. Right, well, that was from the channel Military Weapons. If you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe. Comment down if you want to do any specific reactions like this. Comment the title of the video. Because I'm not a great researcher when it comes to YouTube. Whatever video you want to do, you have to comment down. And yeah, I'll see you next time.